Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sights on Sinnoh, episode 55. My name is Will.
And my name is Manny, and Team Rocket's rockin'.
Oh, they're definitely rocking this episode. This week for you, we are covering an interesting pair, and we'll talk about why in a second, but this is the Diamond and Pearl anime podcast, which covers the Diamond and Pearl era of the show. But yeah, Jesse and James are kind of the main characters of this episode, along with Meowth. And this week we're talking about episodes 40 and 41 of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Battle Dimension. And, well, this first one's something. It's called A Lean Mean Team Rocket Machine. And basically the episode starts off with Dawn and Piplup trying a new Bubble Beam combination, and they make like a like a figure shaped like Piplup out of bubbles. But but soon after Piplup finishes doing that, it kind of passes out from exertion, so they run over to the Pokemon Center. And you think the episode's going that way, of like, oh, this is going to be a Dawn and Piplup episode. But then we cut to Team Rocket, who has apparently gained a noticeable amount of weight from their time at the Pokemon Summer Academy.
Yeah, okay, so here's my question, because I think I skipped 2 episodes because the titles felt kind of fillery for me. So I was like, oh, if it feels like filler, then there probably won't be like anything important or connected to. So my question is, was the previous episode connected to this one in terms of Team Rocket?
Technically, yes.
Oh, okay.
So it is funny you mention it. So we talked about this with the last 2 episodes of Sights on Sinnoh, but the last 4 episodes of the anime, which are the 36, 37, 38, 39, those are all the Summer Academy arc, which is technically considered filler. The 2 notable things, though, is that there are 2 Pokemon reveals there. That are new Pokemon that we haven't seen before. But for the most part, there isn't a lot of eventful stuff. And I kind of forgot that they ever acknowledge it after that point. But they directly mention here that the reason Team Rocket gained all this weight was because they were working here and being fed like they were just getting a lot of food while working here, as employees and also as campers. So it's at most supposed to be like the freshman 15 stereotype that you, or the freshman 15 cliche of like when a person goes to college, they put on more weight because they're going to the dining hall and just stuck in their rooms doing homework and stuff like that for college.
Okay, so you see, yeah, that was a judgment error on my call, because I started this episode when they got to Team Rocket. I was just like confused, and it felt like
Well, the weird part is we see the end of the camp in the last episode, and they weren't like this. Like the episode just is like, oh, apparently they gained a ton of weight.
Yeah, it felt random.
Mm-hmm.
And even
definitely,
even like the beginning conflict with Piplup just for some reason getting tired.
Right, they don't really explain that.
Yeah. So right off the bat, like, I'm already thrown off with the first 2 like main emphasis of these episodes. And
the whole thing feels weird and like uncomfortable, how like now their whole goal is like their whole life now kind of revolves around food, and now realizing that they want to lose weight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment because I was just like, what am I watching? Like, is this
Yeah.
Pokemon? Like I was even gonna like ask you like, hey, is this the right episode? Like, it was it was just so like random is the only way I can describe it. Like I didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe I probably did miss
Uh-huh.
something. Um, they
Yeah.
felt really off from the Team Rocket that I know.
Right. And like they kind of address it by saying that the way they're going to turn their lives around is by going to classic Team Rocket tactics.
Yeah.
And what this means is to train like they did when they were first starting off as Team Rocket.
Mm-hmm.
Which in itself is kind of vague, though James does show some flashbacks that we got from like earlier seasons of them in this like purple uniform.
Yeah, that uniform
Um,
looks cool.
yeah, that is a neat look. It doesn't really come up after that, but Team Rocket basically goes to for work on that after realizing like, oh, putting on weight also made us nice guys instead of bad guys,
Yeah,
which
and
is
then
just
like the weird dad jokes of insulting each other's weight just didn't
yeah.
fit in. It felt like it shouldn't have been there at all. It was just like it made it feel more awkward. Like I felt I was at that restaurant and I was just watching three people insult each other.
Mhm.
It was just like, oh man, like I really, I really want to walk out right now. This feels so awkward. But then we see Dawn like beating herself up and
Uh-huh.
calling herself a bad trainer just because of one move that Piplup did, which to me again didn't make any sense whatsoever. Like I felt no sympathy for her because I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah. She, she just kind of blames herself and she's like very hard on her skills and ability as a trainer for some reason. And she's like watching over Piplup as it's resting in bed at the Pokemon Center, and then it wakes up but then it like falls back asleep. So she goes over to Ash, who's talking with Professor Oak via like Zoom call, basically. So they had that back in
Yeah, they
2007.
were way ahead of their time.
She still refers to him as Poetry Man guy. Yeah, Poetry Man. Which is like, oh, Dodge. He's a professor, buddy. He went to school for that title.
Yeah, she don't care about that degree. She only cares about the poetry. Oh, that right. I didn't.
Oh, that sounds like a poem right
Yeah,
there.
the bars. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
And Ash says, "Oh yeah, Professor Oak is giving me some advice. Hey, you might be interested in this too." He says, "The advice is like go and interact with people at the Pokemon Center."
Yeah.
Like, what?
Now I see why she only cares about his artistic side, his professor side. Yeah, that was just I don't know what happened in this episode. Everything.
Right? It's like, why would you tell this to them 4 badges into this
Yeah, it
season?
it definitely felt like they reset Dawn's character and her development and her growth
Mm-hmm.
because she felt more like she just started as a trainer.
Right. Like at the beginning, it seemed like she was very skilled. Like she had this whole complex thing for Piplup,
Mm-hmm.
which she probably would have never had when she was first starting off. But now it's like she's going back to basics for some stuff that she definitely should know by this point in the season.
Yeah, it's just for me. She definitely felt like the afterthought of this plot, and it just made me wonder. Like, I feel
Hmm.
like it shouldn't even have been a part of this episode because it just if once again just like
Yeah.
with the luxury episode, like it just felt like this was supposed to be the important part of the episode, but it fell to the wayside and was overshadowed by this rocket plot, which is again confusing because obviously the name had emphasis that this is going to be a Team Rocket centered episode, but they start with uh, a problem between Piplup and Dawn.
Right, and it's like not even a problem, and it's not even a mystery. Like it tries to be one or the other and doesn't really commit.
Yeah, there was no flow whatsoever. It felt like they got 2 episodes, chopped them up as best as they could, and decided to make it into one episode that just didn't flow whatsoever.
It's just bizarre. Like she goes and asks someone like, "Oh, how did you get your some random trainer in the Pokemon Center? How did you get your Glaceon for it to look like that?" And like they chat or something, but it's just so
Yeah, it was
feels
like,
so
oh, I have
hollow.
a secret brushing technique. It's like, really? I'd like to see this. Like, yo, I never thought you'd ask. It's like, oh.
Yeah, like why?
Like, oh man.
So then we cut back to Team Rocket like forcing themselves to work out and like watching a macho fitness video. They got all this like gym equipment and they're doing training in like this little cabin place.
How in the restaurant? How did you feel about that that scene where they pushed Meowth's coin into his flesh?
That was that was so
right?
disturbing.
Like, oh my god, what am I watching?
Yeah, it's just so uncomfortable. That whole first half of the episode, like, did not need to exist.
Part of me was wondering, like, if there was like a very mature innuendo when it came to what Meowth said after James had acknowledged that he noticed that his fat was coming out from where his belt buckle was. Something about not being able to see south of the border. Yeah, and then
it was weird.
Yeah, it was just this episode. Well, this episode. Oh,
yeah, it's like okay, unnecessary episode. Like, there's one good thing in this whole episode, and it's not till like the last 3 minutes. So we'll struggle through it, but again, we are covering the next episode, which is much better. So stick through it. Hopefully, if you guys haven't watched this, you're fine. You can just skip this episode. Pretty much.
Our pain is your salvation. There you go.
Salvation. So Ash and Brock are doing dishes, and we're like, "Why? They're in the Pokemon Center." And Brock's like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it to help Nurse Joy," and he's apparently enlisted all their Pokemon to help them with this too. And it's mostly to like impress Nurse Joy and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm helping her."
But
Brock,
the weird thing is he doesn't mention it until after Ash asks him why he's not cooking, which again is just another like random thing.
And like we see Pachirisu, Weasel, and Gliscor all sitting in the corner hungry. And Ash is the one who has to tell Brock, and he's like, "No, not yet. I have to do more things for Nurse Joy." It's like, Brock, what are you doing? Like, you're a breather. Go feed these Pokemon.
Yeah, I think this is like one of the for everybody in general, like the weakest character presentations in any of the episodes that we've seen so far. We have Brock kind of being more over the top for me, and like, oh, like she's doing so much that I need to do everything else just for her to impress her. But they don't give that sense until after, like, maybe the audience is asking, like, wait, why are they doing this?
Right. Like it they try to explain what's happening, and it's just very poorly done. Like Brock and Team Rocket seem like caricatures. Dawn seems like she doesn't have any experience suddenly. And Ash is like the only one who kind of doesn't get his character assassinated in this episode. We cut to later that evening, where Team Rocket has managed to lose like 40 pounds, apparently, and they're now in these slim, fashionable thieving suits for crime have these masks on, and it's a cool look, but also like, why the heck did you need the first 12 minutes of this episode for them to lose weight?
Yeah, because typically it would be like, oh, we're fat, we need to lose weight. And then they don't show that progress, but they come back after the result. But in this, we saw like them watching the macho, like Billy Blanks style fitness video, and then they come in, I think for like the first time in probably forever, in a car. It's like,
oh yeah, that's true.
And then what happens to the car later is just
like, wait.
Oh man, but the suits looked cool. Like, that's all I pretty much took of it, because even like during the dialogue,
right,
it still felt weird. It felt like I was watching like a cheesy 80s anime, and again, it just left me like, what am I watching? Like, is this a legit episode? Like, did they legitimately air this both in Japan and worldwide? And then the rose that James had magically turns into a key.
Yeah, well, before we can get there, so they're driving up to the Pokemon Center, and this whole thing is part of the theme of their like goal this episode, which is to go back to basics as Team Rocket. And they go back to these like romanticized villain attires again that I think we've seen versions of in different seasons. The most iconic part is probably James holding the rose in his mouth. And then they break into the building very stealthily, using like ropes and very like cat burglar style, basically. So none of their like robots or like fancy machines and everything. And the cutest part is seeing Mime Jr. in the mask.
Yeah, I honestly thought that this was like a dream sequence.
Oh, yeah.
It felt that way to me. I was like, oh, okay, we're going to realize they're daydreaming because they got tired from exercising.
That would have been great.
It would have, but I still feel like what they would have done after, like them still being overweight, would have just brought the episode back down.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but we do get like this whole like, oh, we all need to split up. And Meowth, in his words, gets stuck with like the worst of the bunch. You see Carnivine, you see Wobbuffet, and like you said, Mime Jr. in the cat burglar mask, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, it's adorable. It's like one of the little tiny details I do like there, because those are all Pokemon that, of course, were not part of the original Team Rocket. Like,
yeah, and no Seviper.
Yeah, and that's in the trivia for this episode. Seviper just randomly doesn't make an appearance this episode. And then this is when we get to the part where they start breaking into the Pokeball room of the Pokemon Center, where they have all these Pokemon stored, basically. And Meowth uses that rose, like you said.
James.
Yeah, James uses that rose, like you said.
Just, I understood the petals, him taking it off, and there being like a decoder chip.
Right.
But then the stem magically turns into a key. And my one thought was, if they have this type of technology, why haven't they been using it? Like,
what's funny is like they use very similar technology to this in Unova, which is the next.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, because they suddenly become like very proficient villains and have all this like high-tech gear to do their work. But it like here it's like, where did this come from? Like, we have seen nothing like this pretty much the whole time we've been in Sinnoh.
Yeah, like the one headcanon that I made was that James kept this magical rose locked up because he had gotten soft throughout the years. And when it became time to go back to the basics, he brought out Old Faithful.
Apparently, yeah.
But even that couldn't say. Even that couldn't say.
Oh no, of course not. But yeah, it's basically like a rod that somehow copies the key that's supposed to be by
Scanning, I guess, the code.
it doesn't make sense. Like, so uh, d- how does the key input affect how does the code input affect the shape of the key?
Yeah. It makes me wonder if they took inspiration from an anime, just like they did with,
Maybe.
because that's the only thing I could think of. Like at this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm just accepting that nothing is making sense.
Right.
I'm just gonna watch the episode, see how it goes, and
Yeah.
thankfully, I haven't thrown anything at my TV yet. But
Right. Or as they're trying to like steal all these Pokemon, what they do is stuff Carnivine's mouth full of all these Pokeballs, and you try to use it like a walking bag.
yeah, that was a really cool like uh, detail and
Hmm.
like a cool aspect on Meowth, using it like, hey, like you have a big mouth, let's just stuff it Pokeballs. And then that's when I found out, I was like, oh, this isn't a dream, because what happens next is Carnivine can't keep its mouth closed, and the Pokeballs drop, and they wake up Piplup.
Right,
And
Piplup's
yeah,
right, like they're standing right outside Piplup's hospital room, basically.
yes, and that's when to me it was like, oh, okay, this is not a dream, so this is gonna go either good or worse.
I like the gag for Carnivine, but it's just like you had this super high tech
Yes.
key thing, and like now you can't take all these Pokeballs.
Yeah.
And Piplup comes out and confronts them, and Meowth's like, "No, we're not Team Rocket." But then Carnivine drops all these balls again, so Piplup is just like, Piplup does the smartest thing, probably,
Oh yeah.
which is just like yell and wake everyone in the Pokemon Center up.
Yeah, that was definitely smart on Piplup's behalf. We've kind of seen that Piplup is a pretty smart Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was cool that it was just like, oh, I mean, I can't do anything by myself, so let me just wake everybody up, see if somebody catches them on the way. And,
Right, like get everyone alert.
Yeah, and we hear obviously Dawn wakes up in a fright and runs immediately to check up on Piplup.
And Team Rocket has basically made it outside, but they're like panicking because everyone's waking up. And Piplup is in the lobby, trying to like tell our heroes what's going on. And they get dressed very quickly. Like we see Dawn in her pajamas. So it's either very quickly or they all took their time to get ready.
Or they were like Team Rocket and decided to sleep with their clothes under.
Well, we see Dawn's actually in her sleeping clothes.
Yeah.
So it's like
she could have done what they did and pulled off the pajamas and been in her outfit.
Oh man, that would be great. Just like whoosh, rip it off,
right? And like somehow her beanie magically appears as she does that.
Oh, that would make this episode somewhat better. But
yeah,
what we get here is everyone's like saying, "Oh, like all these random trainers are like, oh, my Pokeballs are gone." Like, yeah, me too. And then like, wait, did you go check the room? Like, how do you know this?
my thought was, did they go into the bedrooms and steal the Pokeballs?
It doesn't seem like it. It seems like they were all focused on
because
just this one room.
Because with Nurse Joy, when she comes in, she mentions they're not in the room. So I assume it's like, oh, they probably stole them while everybody was asleep and then went to that room, because they were split up. So we don't know where Jesse and James went.
Oh yeah, I guess, but like that seems a little too much for me. It's possible, but I feel like they would have shown us that.
They couldn't, because they wanted us to see them exercising. So
right, so we'll never know. Basically,
the message of this episode was eat healthy, exercise day in and day out, which I do none of those. So Sorry, Pokemon, you did not get your message across to me.
And Team Rocket is trying to get away with in their car again and has like this special case for the balls. But before they can get away, our heroes run out by themselves, apparently. And Team Rocket, as you said, just throws off their fancy clothes and reveals their real ones underneath. This is the interesting part. This is like one of the only interesting things. They say the original Team Rocket motto.
Yeah, which is probably Don's first time hearing it.
And I think it might be the first time we see the new voice actors doing it.
Yeah, did they switch it up in Battle Frontier? They still said it, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They had it switched up, or was it the original?
No, they had a different one for Battle Frontier, at least for the beginning, I think.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was kind of neat, but like it was very complicated.
That's interesting. I always, like, in the back of my head, I always thought it was Sinnoh when they changed it up. I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah, they did it in Battle Frontier.
Yeah,
I think they might have gone back at some point, but then Sinnoh is when they did like the third or fourth official version.
yeah. I feel like if I look it up and listen to it, it'll probably ring some bells, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this one now.
So they do the motto, which is kind of cool because they're again all about going back to basics as Team Rocket. The animation isn't particularly like great here, so that's kind of disappointing that they didn't do something special for the old motto. However, they're like still very happy with themselves, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like going back to basics really is working out for us." And now we're gonna beat the pants off you. So Jesse sends out Yanmega to use Silverwind. Carnivine comes out for Bullet Seed, and Carnivine doesn't attack James. But that might be just because it's out of its ball already.
So random. Yeah, Carnivine probably did it before entering.
Exactly. Pikachu tries to hit it with Thunderbolt, but Yanmega counters with Sonic Boom. No one else really does anything, so then Meowth reveals that their car is actually a mecha robot suit.
Yes.
And it combines with the case of the Pokeballs. We get this like Transformers-esque robot.
Yeah, but the best part was Team Rocket's Rockin' started playing in the background.
Yes.
And my childhood self came out and started singing along. That was such a good jam, man. I used to like that. I used to love that song.
Yeah, from the To Be a Master album, right?
Yeah, I remember they would play it a lot during some of the episodes as well, during the series.
Oh, interesting. I never actually remember hearing it during the show.
They played it. There was like this one episode where they were filming a movie in the anime.
Oh, okay.
And the Pokemon danced and they played that song. But then you remember how, or I don't know if you watched the Indigo Plateau, but after like the episode was done, they would put on music videos from the To Be a Master album. And
oh, interesting.
Yeah, sometimes they would play the Team Rocket's Rockin' music video, which is pretty much just clips from them during the anime. But it was a really
okay.
It was a really cool jam.
Interesting, cool. Yeah, I never watched it when it was on air. But that seems like a cool little addition to put in the back.
Yeah, it was a really cool song to play on the jukebox, as the kids say.
But it is a pretty cool song here, I'll say. That's kind of a neat moment. A deep cut for some old time fans, and makes sense with the theme of this episode, which is neat. Team Rocket is just attacking with a robot. Piplup tries to use Whirlpool on it, but they just break it with their fist. So instead, like the one other thing we've seen this episode comes back, because Piplup makes a whole bubble ball, basically, that covers the windshield of Team Rocket, and that distracts him enough for Pikachu to get the Pokeballs back from them by using Iron Tail. Then Happiny jumps in to catch it, and Team Rocket like clears the bubbles, but they've already lost the balls, and Pikachu charges up for a Thunderbolt, and they're Jesse and James are very excited to be like, we'll be fine. But Meowth is like very sad.
Yep, they went back to basics and got a robot that could not withstand the electric type attacks.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I mean, I kind of get the joke, but it's also like there's a ton of things there. Like you didn't have a robot in the first episode either, so
No, they
you're
did.
kind of stretching it there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they blast off, and that's when Meowth explains that yeah, we originally were never facing Pikachu,
That's true.
so we didn't have a reason to have electric proofing on our equipment.
Yep, very true. They were never really after Pikachu. It was only until they saw how powerful Pikachu was that they thought it was a rare Pikachu, and that's when they decided that their life's goal would be to chase Pikachu until they caught it to give it to the boss because it was a very rare and powerful Pikachu.
Exactly, yeah. Does not pay off for them though as they go blasting off. And then we cut to the next day where Nurse Joy is like, yeah, take it slow and steady, Piplup. Like don't exhaust yourself too much. And Pipplup's like, yeah, I don't know what happened in the first place, but okay. And then they leave the Pokemon Center and hopefully never talk about this episode again. So, that's kind of it for a lean, mean Team Rocket machine. And I'm sorry we're so negative. It's just like, it just irks me in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely one of those episodes that did not need to exist whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
If I wouldn't have been for watching this episode, I probably would have been fine knowing it didn't exist.
Yeah.
It was like, again, this is just, the feeling was just confusion and being like so questioning everything. Like everything just felt so random. Nothing felt like it connected. Even though the main thing was Team Rocket wanting to cut down on their weight and go back to the basics, that story still didn't feel like it connected whatsoever.
It would have been so much better if in the beginning they had just been like, oh, we've been failing a lot, and like maybe Camp made us rethink how we're doing things.
Yeah.
Because it gave us a break. But instead you do this like really awkward and uncomfortable segment about them gaining weight and then having to lose it, which then is like almost immediately viewed as unnecessary because they're like, oh yeah, we lost like 40 or 50 pounds in this one afternoon.
Yeah, I feel like if they would have gone with the emphasis of like, hey, we've gone soft, we need to go, we need to like get back to it, and then have time for Don and Piplup, because they felt like, hey, this happened in the beginning, but that's it. That's all you're gonna get from it.
Right.
So I feel like
like that's the one thing that kind of comes back from the first part of this episode.
Yeah, I feel like they should have been like, hey, we've gone soft, let's cut back, let's go back to the basics, and then like not show them at all until they did the heist.
Yeah,
because it would
have been nice.
Yeah, and it would have given you that sense of like, hey, they went to train. We didn't need to see it because it didn't necessarily need to be in the episode, and it could have given more time for Piplup and for Dawn, because Piplup pretty much spent the entire episode in a bed. There was no progression between the two, between Pokemon and trainer. It was just like, oh, like I feel bad. I'm a bad trainer. There was nothing to resolve it. Like Piplup wasn't like, hey, it's not your fault. Like, don't feel that way. You know, it wasn't. There was a bit of emphasis.
It was very unsatisfying.
Yeah, there was just like one acknowledgement of like, hey, like you overworked yourself, but they didn't focus on it or emphasize on it, and they could have used Brock and Ash to give their perspective on maybe times that they have overworked their Pokemon.
Yeah,
given Dawn advice, and Nurse Joy could have said something as well.
Right, like I almost see the two parallels that they tried to have there, which is that Dawn overworked Piplup and Team Rocket underworked their like worth ethic or skills or something. But they don't connect because neither of them is satisfying.
Yeah, and they didn't give a good emphasis on like
Uh-huh.
those opposite storylines if that's what they were going for. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so like I'm I'm not like hesitant to say that I feel like this episode doesn't deserve a score whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just gonna leave it at a 0 because I did not enjoy this episode whatsoever. It was
Yeah.
one of those episodes is just like I kind of wanted to skip it because I felt like
Uh-huh.
nothing uh important was gonna matter, but just for the favoritism that I have towards Team Rocket, I decided to keep watching it just to see like maybe
If there's any hope.
maybe there's any hope. And it got to the point where like I didn't even want to watch the sub version just because of just how
Yeah.
bad this episode left me as a viewer. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at a 0.
I'll give it a 1 because we heard the Team Rocket song. Like that's literally the only thing this episode kind of deserves. Or that's the
Yeah,
only like favor I'll give it because of that.
yeah, I see your perspective. But like I said, I love that the song was there, and I love
Uh-huh.
the outfits that they had. But those weren't enough for me to save the episode.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. It's a very begrudging one, I give it.
Yeah.
But that's enough talk there. Let's move on to a much more positive episode. Leaving off episode 40, a lean, mean Team Rocket machine. We'll move to episode 41, which is playing the leveling field.
Yes, and
And
in the Japanese version, it is episode 93,
uh
known as the dancing gym leader. Melissa appears.
right, or enter Melissa is the one I'm seeing on Bulbapedia, but that might be
Well, Bulbapedia got it wrong.
they got it wrong. Ooh, Bulbapedia.
It's Melissa appears. Bulbapedia. Come on.
Okay, get on that. um, Dawn and her friends are passing through a town on their way to the Celestic contest when they see Zoe in the middle of a tough battle with a well-dressed coordinator. Zoe's Glammeow is beaten by her opponent's Miss Magius, and this stranger introduces herself as Fantina, the Hearthome Gym Leader herself.
Yeah. What an awesome tie-in because the first time I had seen the Hearthome Gym, I noticed a Driftblim. And
Oh, yeah.
and I had asked you about. Oh, you had asked me about that Pokemon,
Uh-huh.
and I did not expect this episode to show us that gym leader. But when I saw that little like X on her dress,
Ooh.
I immediately thought about Driftbloom 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of clicked to me, and I was like, "Oh wait, is this the gym leader?"
Yeah.
But one
Nice.
thing I will say about this character, do you watch My Hero in dub or in sub?
In sub.
Okay, do you know? I don't know her name, but the horn girl from Class B that's American.
I think so. She can control her like six
Yeah, her
pairs of
horns.
horns or
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So upon hearing, Fantine, who is known as Melissa, in the English version, obviously she has a French accent, as we learned when we first introduced her. But in the dub version, in the dub, this is the dub. In the the Japanese version, she had a bit of an accent, and it reminded me a lot about that character from My Hero, who is American,
Mm-hmm.
and so my questioning was, okay, well, is she portraying to be French as well in this version, in the Japanese version? But then we see I see that she spoke words in English. So I guess under that assumption, in the Japanese version, she's an American trainer rather than a French trainer, as she's presented
Huh.
in the English version, which makes sense because it wouldn't make sense for her to be American in an American version of this episode.
Right.
But it was cool to learn that, because usually when there's characters that speak French, they'll say phrases in France as well. So she spoke
Right.
a lot of phrases in English. So that was a really cool like thing to see how they kind of switched it up. Kind of like when they decided to change up Hamilton's appearance, but
Right.
this was more subtle.
Yeah, she's a very distinct character for those reasons, basically.
Yeah.
She kind of peppers in some French to what she's saying. She has that big dress, which, like you mentioned, has that X on it, similar to the Drifloon line, and also like the statue she has at the gym. And she's using a ghost type Miss Magius against Glamio. She hits it with Psybeam, and Glamio's now confused as Psybeam does in the games. So when it tries to use Shockwave, it actually kind of misses. And Shockwave isn't the move that's supposed to miss, but here I think they do it to show that the confusion keeps it from successfully hitting, even though it kind of breaks through to be able to use that move in the first place. So it kind of shows, again, just Zoe's like persistence there, which is kind of neat. But what did you think about how we're introduced to Fantina by having Zoe be the person who's just battling her that they happen to come across?
I thought it was cool. It was
Hmm.
a great way to introduce a gym leader, because I've been
Mm-hmm.
liking how we've been introduced to all the different gym leaders.
Right.
So this was another great introduction. Like, we start in a battle, and you kind of get the assumptions like, oh, she's battling a coordinator.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So which is why, maybe when it's revealed later on who she really is, it makes that reveal more like impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it definitely, seeing like her grace and that dress, it's like, oh man, she's probably like somebody serious in the contest world, and it leaves you
Mm.
with that. I want to see what this coordinator can do against Zoe, who we know is really really good in terms of contests.
Right.
And uh, I like that they used the Torchics for the Confusion chickens.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, and it was cool to see Glamio break free of it. And the
Mm-hmm.
sequence that came after was awesome, because once again, Zoe asks to Glamio to do a shockwave, and I like how it comes out from the spring of its tail. It makes it look like a
Right.
cannon,
Mm-hmm.
and Fantine takes advantage of it in a way that I really liked. She uses Magical Leaf,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of like captures the shockwave, and she makes a circle around her Miss Magius, which is really cool. But the way that the trainers walked in on the battle kind of felt random again for me,
Yeah.
and it was Don's response was like, "Oh, I knew it was Zoe," but the way they came in didn't make it seem like
Uh-huh.
they were in a rush to see if that's who it was or not.
Yeah, like I wish they had said, "Oh yeah, we were gonna meet Zoe here for lunch or
Mm-hmm.
something." But it's very much like, "Oh, there's Zoe,"
Yeah, she's like, "I
and we
knew."
just stumbled.
Yeah, it was like, I knew that's who it was, but it was like, you guys were just strolling. It didn't really seem like Dawn
Uh-huh.
was in a rush to confirm that who
Right,
she thought.
exactly. Yeah. As you mentioned, Fantina uses Magical Leaf to make a protective ring around Miss Magius and kind of stop the shockwave, which Brock's like, "Oh, that's awesome." She's using grass type attacks, which usually resist electric attacks, uh, to protect Miss Magius.
Yeah, it was a
And
really, yeah, like in Brock's word, it was a really cool, use of a type resistance, and
Mm-hmm.
the way that she took advantage of it and added it to like her Pokemon strength.
Right. And then she does even something cooler, which is use Psywave to send back the Shockwave and the Magical Leaf at Glameow. And everyone's like, "Oh, like whoa, that's impossible!" And Glameow takes a direct hit, knocking it out.
Yeah, and Zoe, definitely not the reaction I was expecting. Her
Yeah, I
like
did
being
find it
like,
a little odd.
yeah, her being like, "Oh, thank you for the battle. Like that was a great battle." I thought she was
Right.
I thought she was gonna be like a bit disappointed. But it was
Uh
cool to
huh.
see. It was cool to see that she was grateful for the opportunity, and that's when we get the first sight of who Fantina is, and because she embraces her as like, "Oh yeah, you're definitely a top coordinator."
Yeah, it's like, oh, it was great to have this opportunity to go against a top coordinator. The part I did find weird is that she was immediately super grateful as she's holding her unconscious Glameow.
Yeah,
Like, if Glameow had woken back up, that might have been a little better, but it was like, you're really not caring too much about your Pokemon in this moment.
it definitely took me off guard, and part of me was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, maybe like the previous episode is still lingering in my brain." But it definitely did feel a bit out of character for Zoe.
Yeah, just slightly, but again, she acknowledges like, "Oh yeah, you're top coordinator. Thanks for battling me." And again, she says some French, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you were a great opponent too." So I guess Zoe did something impressive before this because she didn't do a lot when she was when she was getting through the second half of this battle. Brock interrupts them as they're shaking hands, and Grogu just quickly gets rid of him, which is great. And Fantina's like, "Oh, such a beast," about Krokunk, but like in a very amazed kind of way.
That was so random, but so funny.
And that's where she introduces, where Zoe introduces Fantina to everyone, and she tells Ash, "Hey, look, this is the Hearthome Gym Leader, Ash." And he's like, "Where have you been?" Because Ash has gone to the gym like 3 times at this point and hasn't found her there.
Yeah, and rightfully so. His response, because I probably would have been like that as
Right?
well. Like, man, I've been in your gym 3 times. Where you been? You ain't no Giovanni.
Yeah, like, why are you doing your job?
Yeah,
And she says, "Hey, it's because now I've become a traveling trainer like you, and I have no other choice but to leave the Heart Home Gym vacant." And everyone's like, "Oh, you're traveling now?" Like, what? Because again, back in Kanto, apparently there was a rule for those gyms that if you leave it vacant for too long, you can lose your status as a Pokemon gym.
yeah,
But that doesn't seem to be the case here because she straight up just leaves it abandoned and like doesn't have anyone filling in for her.
and it makes me wonder if because of Zoe's history, if
Hmm.
how long she knew about Fantina.
Yes,
Because we
that's
know,
also a great question I had in mind.
yeah, because we know that back then she didn't like the idea of gym uh, contestant being a coordinator as well. Um,
Right, a gym battler and a
a gym challenge,
contest coordinator in
yes,
her eyes
gym
shouldn't be the same person. Like they have to be separate.
gym challenger was the word I was looking for. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's yeah. There we go.
it was that was definitely the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, I wonder how she would have felt back then, or even upon meeting her.
Hmm.
Um, how she felt, because she obviously knew that she was the gym leader. But
Right, and she changed her mind later with Nando,
yeah,
but
but my question was, did she know beforehand that she was a gym leader, or did she just know that she was a coordinator?
I feel like there's no way she would have known because she would have respected Ash and Nando way more if she realized that a top coordinator was also a gym leader,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like which also is like kind of weird that Zoe didn't know about Fantina.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes me wonder how long she's been doing it as well. For
Hmm.
maybe Dawn not to know who Fantina was.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because I feel like that is immediately something that's like trivia or news, and it's like, oh yeah, one of the gym leaders in our region is also top coordinator, which is um
Yeah, because
pretty uncommon to be so skilled at both.
I feel like that's something that would have a lot of um
At least attention.
yeah, there you go. Why am I forgetting words today? Yeah, a gym leader that's a coordinator definitely would have a lot of attention in a place like Sinnoh, I feel.
Right. And Fantina kind of explains that again, she's leaving the gym vacant. And we get another little callback here as Team Rocket is spying on what's going on, and Mouth is like, "Oh, she's a top coordinator and a gym leader," and James is like, "Oh yeah, that job description comes to mind for someone else," and we don't even get the name, but we get an image of a past gym leader. And did you recognize them?
Yes, because this is who I first thought was Wallace originally.
Hmm.
Because I do
Hmm.
remember him in my playthrough of Sapphire back in the day. Um, because I think originally he was the eighth gym leader. Or am I wrong?
Wallace.
No, not Wallace. The character they showed.
So the character they showed was only the eighth gym leader in Emerald, and he
What
actually
the
didn't
heck?
exist in Ruby or Sapphire.
Then how do I know him?
I don't know, buddy.
Does his name start with a P?
No.
Jesus.
Wait, who do you think? Wait, what do you
Oh
think his
my
name
gosh.
is?
I thought his name was like Piers or something.
Oh no,
Because
Pierce is from Galar.
because I don't remember fighting Wallace whatsoever. I remember this guy, but I never played Emerald. I only had Sapphire.
Oh, that's weird.
So once again, I need to go see a specialist because my mind is just
So
unless
this guy,
unless I remember
what?
him unless I remember him from the anime.
He's in the anime, yes,
Yeah, okay,
because
then
he
that's
is the eighth gym leader in the Hoenn anime, and there's
yeah.
no Wallace whatsoever, which
There
is
you
weird.
go. That's why I remember him because he was the gym leader in the anime, and
Yeah.
Wallace, who was introduced in Sinnoh, was the reason I got confused. I was like, wait, didn't I fight
Yeah.
Wallace in Sapphire? But then I was like, no, I
R-
remember this
uh,
guy from the anime. Okay, now it all makes sense. Thank you.
yeah, and we talked about this with Greg also. That's like, why are you introducing Wallace in Sinnoh? He should have been introduced in the last region, um, just because that's where he's from. But again, the character that they're talking about here, after after all this discussion, to clarify, hopefully for everyone at home as well, is Juan.
There you go. I knew he was like an hermano. I was like, his name has to be. He has to be. I was gonna say Pablo, but I was like, no, it wasn't Pablo.
Yep.
There you go. I remember now.
Exactly. Juan is the eighth gym leader in the Hoenn games and Sutopolis City, so he's all about water. And he replaces Wallace, who in Emerald becomes the champion, and Steven steps down.
Oh, that's cool. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to find me a copy of Emerald now.
Right, that's the difference there. Is like, oh, we have Wallace as the champion instead of the eighth gym leader. Um, and I don't know why they show this flashback, honestly. Like, it's not really necessary, but it's kind of cool, I guess.
It also makes me wonder if kids at that time who didn't watch Battle Frontier at all
Uh-huh.
would be left up in the air and be like, "Well, who's this
Oh,
guy?"
yeah,
Right?
totally, because they don't even say his name.
Mm-mm.
But Jesse's like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna go and copy Fantina's moves, and it's gonna be great, even though they're like, you only have a Yen Mega. Like, you're not gonna get a lot of success here with that, but they go ahead and let her try. So she'll come in back in a few minutes. But inside, they're all talking to Fantina as they're having some lunch. And Ash is like, "Hey, a lot of people want to challenge you. I'm pretty sure, and that includes me."
Yeah, and she seemed pretty stuck up, like just ignoring him, just
Yeah, she
sipping
like
her
has her
tea.
tea, and before he can press her more for answers, Jesse comes in dressed up as her reporter personality and knocks Ash away. um, as she tries to have an interview with Fantina to be like, "Oh hi, like I'm a fan," and like, um, Fantina of course has no clue who she is, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just Daya, this famous reporter supposedly." And I'd love to like interview you because there are some media channels supposedly. Um, and during all this, like, she she actually says that she's training right now, and she can't help him with that. And Ash is like, that makes no sense. You're a gym leader and a top coordinator.
No, Ash, you make no sense. It makes all the sense in the world why she would keep training.
Yeah, that part
Especially,
did seem a little weird that Ash changes his arguments. Like, no, like just keep up what you were saying before, Ash. That like, no, you still have those responsibilities as a gym leader.
yeah, that would have been a better argument. But he's like, oh, a trainer and a coordinator is still training. Like, yeah, Ash, your friend is a coordinator. She's still training.
Specifically, top coordinator. Um, which means like you're kind of a winner of multiple contest festivals, basically. But it is weird that he says that because of what we get later on. Um, after Fantina's explanation, which she starts telling us about as a gym leader. Like we even see her with a Mischievous before it was Miss Macchius, um, doing her her like contests, and winning, and then becoming top coordinator, and then opening up the gym with the mayor of Hearthome and declaring that her specialty was ghost types. And after fighting a lot of battles with Pokemon like Gengar and stuff, she actually battles someone that we've seen before.
Oh yeah,
And it is Goku.
Goku. Yes, I was so happy to see him. I was like, wait a minute,
What's his?
is that? I
Yeah.
was like, oh, he's back. Yeah, it was so cool.
How did you feel about that?
So, did you not hear the excitement in my voice? I was
You
pumped.
for a second.
Man, I paused it. I went to go grab my Goku plush. I put him right in between my arms. I held him and then pressed play, as we saw. No, I
Oh,
didn't.
that's great.
I didn't do that. I was just super hyped. Yeah, it was cool to see
Right.
his little cameo. And
Yes, it was Alan for people at home who is voiced by the same voice actor as Goku.
yes. So, but I am curious as to what the time frame was because
Hmm.
she had been away from the gym, but somehow she came back after Alan evolved his Probopass.
Right, because in the flashback we see that he's battling with Nosepass, but it gets knocked out, implying that he loses. But she says that, and then this challenger came back for a rematch with Probopass and was able to beat her. So we saw this evolution happen a few episodes ago, or like 20 episodes or so ago. I say maybe more.
Yeah, it was
Um,
towards the beginning of the first couple of episodes of the season.
exactly of the whole Sinnoh arc. So not Battle Dimension, but right before. And she kind of says that this is one of the many instances where people would come back and rematch her and win. And she really got inspired by that because she wants to win as well. So what she decided to do is to go traveling and pretty much start her own journey to develop more as a trainer herself.
Yeah, but that's one nitpick that I have, is that all 3 times that Ash has gone, she hasn't been there. And the reasoning for that was because she wanted to go train. But again, somehow, I guess she came back. Is that safe to assume?
Well,
because she loses to Alan, who has a Probo Pass now.
I feel like she was a gym leader. Alan Challenger went and found Ash because that might be why.
That's probably why he was training, right? He lost the first time.
Right, that makes more sense now why he went to Mount Coronet specifically to train, because he knew he needed Nosepass to evolve to get stronger and finally beat Fantina.
Yeah, but my point is that she's been gone this entire time. Her reasoning was because she wanted to get stronger. So are we to assume that this entire time she hasn't returned? Well, my assumption was that this entire time she hasn't returned whatsoever. But the flashback...
Correct, that's my assumption too.
But the flashback with Alan, who now has a Probo Pass, is like she returned.
No, so that's the thing. So Fantina's at the gym. She beats Alan. She still stays at the gym while Alan goes to train. Alan then comes back and beats her, and then shortly after, maybe after facing some other trainers, that's when she leaves.
So then how does that explain the first time we go to the gym and she's not there?
Because Ash isn't going to Hearthome right after he beats Alan. He's still going to Eterna City.
No. But the first time we saw the gym, when you asked me, like, oh, did you notice that Pokemon? Was that after the Alan episode? No, right? Because that was...
that was way after Alan.
Was it when Zoe was first introduced to Nando?
Yeah. Okay. When they get to Hearthome, that's... Yeah.
Okay, well, good. Glad you cleared that up too, because I was like so confused.
Yeah. So remember, like, Ash meets Alan on their way to Eterna City, but he still goes to Eterna City while Alan goes back to Hearthome. It's just that Alan goes in a different order for the gyms than Ash does.
So then Goku as Alan must have left a very, very strong impression on me, because I felt like I had just watched that episode not too long ago.
Oh, no. That was way before.
Which is why I was just like super confused on the timeline. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so this is...
Thanks a lot, Goku.
Goku and all his timelines and dying and coming back to life. It all just messes it up. So Alan appeared in episode 58 of the Diamond and Pearl anime. And now we're on episode 93. So it's been a while.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, that's just a cool little flashback there. And Brock is finally the fact that Brock is a gym leader comes up in a very good way, because he explains that as a gym leader himself, he's also inspired when he sees trainers come back to rematch him and win. That inspired him to go on his own journey to grow more, because just as a gym leader, you can't always dedicate your time to self-growth because you're battling challengers. And he actually relates to Fantina in that way, and she's like very happy to see that he can do that, because again, Brock was the Pewter City gym leader.
Yeah, he says that those trainers kept a special place in his heart.
Right.
But
who is the trainer that lost to Brock the first time and won the second time?
Yes, you couldn't see it because his eyes were closed, but his eyes were pointed directly at Ash when he said that.
Yeah, it's a cute moment for at least in my headcanon because of that.
Yeah, but another nitpick was, like I mentioned before, she came off as rude, ignoring Ash. And so my reasoning was like, oh, this is gonna be like a super deep backstory. And even the way that Zoe was like, oh, like maybe you should tell them the story you told me, because then they'll understand. I was like, oh, okay. Either I'm gonna start tearing up, or this is gonna be pretty sad story, but not too depressing. And so those two like introductions as to her,
Expectations.
her expectations as to what her real reasoning kind of left me like, okay, well then why did you guys make it seem like a super bad
Yeah, they
thing?
really hyped it up.
Yeah, but it was a really touching moment, like her getting um happy for the acknowledgement of her reasonings, and then
Hmm.
finding out, that Brock is a gym leader as well, which is why he related to her. It was a very touching moment.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of cool, and finally a good use of Brock, which is nice to see.
Yeah,
Um, so after that, Jessidiah, Jesse again, steps in and is like, "Oh yeah, well I'd love to see you battle now with the training that you've done," and she's actually down for it. So it's actually a toss up between Dawn and Ash for who gets to battle her.
yeah, because Dawn as a coordinator was also inspired by her story, and it definitely pumped her up. Because I think anytime someone mentions they're a coordinator, Dawn automatically looks up to them upon learning more about them, just because she loves competing. She's like, well, how do we decide this? Because no, because she Fantina was like, yeah, I'll battle both of you, but my Pokemon are super tired, so sadly, I can only battle one of you.
Right, because she just battled with Zoe.
Yeah, and so the two friends are like, okay, well, how do we decide this? And Donna's like, I have the perfect idea. I'm gonna use my Poketch. I'm gonna touch the screen. I'm gonna push on the surf button so a magical wave can come out and wash you away, Ash. That way I can have her all to myself. But no, that did not happen.
She
They,
hopes and
yeah,
she wishes she does that because instead she uses the coin toss app and we
yes,
don't even see them flip it. We just cut to what's going on
yeah. That
outside.
was a super cute moment. Just seeing her like with
Uh-huh.
the stereotypical puffy cheek, which is supposed to
Uh-huh.
like, I guess, be like the pouty lip.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool because we didn't need to necessarily find out who won or
Right.
lost. It's just by seeing her facial expression, we already knew. It was like, oh, she sadly lost, and it was a fun and cute moment that they added.
Exactly, yeah. And it just kind of builds her personality and she's like, why they have to choose heads?
Yeah.
And Zoe and Brock are just next to her like, like awkwardly laughing.
And once again, the Poketch is used. It's like, because before they start, Fantina is like, okay, well, you get to name the conditions. And Ash decides 3-on-3 until all three members are out, in which Fantina accepts. And she says both trainers can substitute whenever they like.
Uh-huh.
And it was cool that they referenced that this is more like a trainer battle rather than a gym battle.
Right.
And that's when Ash is like, "Oh, hey, we need you again, Don, so we can see who wins." And which was,
Who goes first?
yeah, who goes first. And what was funny to me was Ash once again chose tails, but this time heads
Mm-hmm.
won, unlike the previous time where he won. So I kind of wish they would have like captured that, taken advantage of the fact that when Fantina used heads, she won because of how upset we saw Dawn was when she chose
Oh
heads.
yeah.
Yeah, I felt like it would have added more to the joke, but for me, it was like a really like fun thing to see that she chose heads and ended up winning, unlike Dawn.
Right. And there's a little funny quote there because Fantina pulls out a Pokeball and Ash goes, "Whoa, she's holding a Pokeball."
Yes. Oh
And
my
at first I
god.
was like,
Yes. I'm so glad you caught that, dude, because I heard it too, and it just made me laugh. Like, have you never seen a
"Yeah."
Pokeball before? And then there was this. Okay, first of all, the coin didn't flip whatsoever. It just went. Like, it's not
Uh-huh.
how when you actually flip a coin, it spins multiple times. It just flopped and landed on the heads. And then there was the observation of like, oh, Fantina mentioned ghost type Pokemon. So obviously, no. She said Fantina's gym is ghost type, so obviously she's gonna use ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, yeah, Brock. She told you guys her gym was a ghost type gym.
Right.
And so for me, that was another funny moment. But yeah, definitely that shock of Ash's face. It's like, whoa, she's holding a Pokeball. It was just so like, oh my god, what is going on? But we see why he was shocked, because he thought,
yes, and I'm so glad they did.
I'm glad that they were smart enough to give us the explanation that he assumed that she was going to use her Miss Magius, because her Miss Magius was out of its Pokeball.
Right. So that's where Ash puts it together, that if she's going to use that Pokeball, it means Miss Magius isn't going to be her first Pokemon, because otherwise she wouldn't need to pull out a Pokeball.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, thank you that they didn't just make Ash look like the dumbest person ever.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I'm glad you caught that, because I thought maybe you wouldn't have noticed it the way that I did, but great minds think alike.
Yeah, it like might just be the delivery of the line. It's just like, whoa.
Even in the Japanese version, he's dumbfounded that she takes out a Pokeball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was done on purpose, but it was more funnier in the English version than in the Japanese version.
Yeah. But then Ash is like, after all those hours practicing with Dawn, I know contest battles too, which is a kind of neat little reveal. That he's developed some kind of knowledge about how coordinators approach battles, because Dawn has been her sparring partner, basically.
Yeah, but he was still a bit like on the fence of like how he should approach it.
Yeah, he was still cautious about it, and he's like, I'm not totally sure though. So, especially because he doesn't know what Pokemon she's gonna use, and he sends out Weasel. And I think I know why he sends out Weasel specifically here, as we see Fantina send out her Pokemon.
Remind me again, whose Pokemon came out first? Was it the Drifloon or the Weasel?
The Weasel came out first.
Okay. So I'm gonna assume that it has to do with Weasel's previous relationship with Dawn.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a good point, because we've seen him pay homage when he fought the fighting type Misty girl. I don't remember her name.
Maylene?
Yeah, there you go. Because that episode was definitely centered on her previous bond with Weasel. So yeah, the point that you saw, that observation, definitely makes sense.
Well, I specifically think that he brings out Weasel because Weasel has some experience training for contests.
Mm-hmm.
So he might be able to bring that kind of battle approach to this battle here against another coordinator. So
yeah,
maybe that like nature of battle would come into play in his mind.
Yeah, but again, it kind of feels like they kind of soft reset, because he never really had that kind of struggle when he competed in contests. Like, it kind of seemed like it was kind of not natural, but he had a nice grasp of it, whereas here he was like, oh, like, I don't really know what to do against the coordinator. And it could be that because it was a top coordinator.
Right. Yeah, I think it's mostly him being more cautious because it's a top coordinator and a gym leader. So for him, it's like, whoa, this could be very different, but I know for a fact she's going to be powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of like this more than if he had been more how the anime sometimes can be like, oh yeah, I'm super confident. Which would to me would make no sense. I kind of see this as an aspect of Ash's maturity more than a reset. But I see what you're saying in the fact that like he has battled coordinators in the past.
Yeah, and again, I feel like that's just the previous episode, like weighing on my mind because of the way
Mhm.
Dawn was portrayed. I felt like,
Right.
oh, are they keeping up like the pattern of the trainer kind of forgetting their previous um,
Growth or
interaction?
development.
Yeah, but it does. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Buizel being the first choice because it has that experience in coordinating, but it's also a very good in battle. So that's a good way to combat a gym leader who's also a top coordinator.
Right. And Fantina starts off with her Drifloon using Ominous Wind. Buizel uses Water Gun. And Brock says, "Oh, that's a good water gun," but Drifloon's just able to avoid it very easily by instead like changing direction and going overhead of Weasel and then using Ominous Wind from that direction. I personally see Ominous Wind as one of Drifloon's signature moves, though, so it will be kind of weird that if it doesn't have it in the remakes.
And this was just like a regular attack. It wasn't like a special attack or like a status type of
Uh,
attack.
it's it's basically ancient power but ghost type.
Oh,
So that means it has a chance of raising all the user's stats by one stage.
well, that's cool.
Yeah, but otherwise it's just a 60 base power attack.
Well, guess I'll never get to use it then.
I guess not, unfortunately. And then Weasel tries to use Aqua Jet, charging right at Drifloon and is able to make contact, which kind of surprises Fantina a little bit, as even Drifloon's kind of stunned and takes a little time to recover. And Fantina's like, "Oh, that move was superb, but get ready for this." As Drifloon uses Hypnosis.
Yeah, a very cool way that they showed hypnosis because
Yeah, I liked it.
the only way that I remember it was obviously it being connected to Hypno,
Hmm.
and that episode where it's pretty much waving its pendulum. So it was cool to
Right.
see that. Obviously, Driftbloom not having a pendulum to use, it used the X, or I guess the tape
Hmm.
on its body, and it was swirling around as a way to first confuse Buizel and kind of make you wonder
Mm-hmm.
like, oh wait, which way is it gonna go? Which way is it gonna go? And then it finally hits, and Buizel turns into a Wishmer because its eyes become just like a Wishmer's, and Buizel falls asleep.
Right. And I thought that was cool too that the hypnosis circles around first to kind of catch Weasel off guard, which I thought was neat.
Yeah, because
Um
that I think that was the coordinator aspect of
mhm.
her arsenal, which I will say I liked because it was very subtle, but all her moves that were, um, I guess you could say that she would use in a competition, um, definitely did have that feeling of like, oh, this is something she could use in a contest because like we're kind of used to like seeing like big flashy stuff,
Yeah.
whereas hers it was kind of more. It wasn't as flashy, but it definitely caught your eye, which I think
Right. It was
was,
very skillful, I'd
yeah.
say.
There you go. It was very skillful, very um. I don't know why I was gonna say egocentric. Well, not egocentric. Elegant. There you go. It was very elegant in the
Oh,
way
yeah.
her moves were used, even with the previous like Miss Maggie's Glammeow battle.
Right. And what's funny is Zoe even says from the audience, like, I never knew hypnosis could be used like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a neat detail that she's like, oh yeah, even Zoe recognizes that his hypnosis is a little different. And what's funny is I believe Glamio can actually learn hypnosis, so
Oh,
maybe the gears in her mind are turning for what
yeah.
moves she can teach Glamio.
Could we possibly be seeing Glammeow use hypnosis?
Right.
That's very
And
interesting.
Glamio's just chilling there.
Yeah, I like Glamio. It like just like its facial features. Like it was probably was just resting, but it looked like it was like smug. Like it just
Hmm.
that entire time. It was really like it was probably wasn't intentional, but it definitely caught my eye during those scenes where they focus on the trainers. I focused more on the
Yeah.
Glamio rather than the dialogue between the trainers.
I did find it kind of fun that Dawn was holding Piplup and Brock was holding Happini the whole time. And then
Yeah,
Zoe, of course, had her Glamio.
yeah, it definitely makes me wonder the purpose of why Happini was out.
Yeah, Happini was also with them at lunch, so I guess Brock's like, yeah, Happini needs some more fresh air or something.
Yeah, that could be. Well, yeah, because it's still obviously it's still
Still
a
baby.
baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely needs that attention.
So just a fun moment there. And Brock's is like, Fantina found out a way to get around Ash's strategy after she saw the Aquajet and decided to change it up with hypnosis. Drifloon then comes in and picks up Weasel somehow with its very skinny arms.
Well, I mean, if they're said to take children to the underworld,
Mhm.
I don't see why he would. That was my that was like my hype up moment when I saw the Buizo get lifted up. I was like, oh my god, are we gonna see it take it to the underworld? Like, is it gonna use
Oh.
like a ghost type of like maneuver? Because the Arceus trailer left me wanting to see that. Because in the trailer you see like a Drifloon like disappear somewhere,
Oh.
but there's like a portal under it. So
Mhm.
that was definitely on
Oh,
the.
that might be Phantom Force.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that an anime?
No.
Well, Phantom Force. Okay, is this? Please tell me that movie is still in Gen 8.
Yes.
Well, now that I know that it has a cool name, definitely gonna look it up. So
There you
yeah,
go.
I was expecting it to use Phantom Force, not knowing that that's what it was, because of
Right.
the
In Gen 4, only Giratina could
yeah,
learn it, but
because of
that would be
its
cool for
yeah,
sure.
because of its Pokédex entry. I was like, oh, Buizel's gonna go to the
Right.
underworld. But yeah, it lifts it up, and I think he uses telekinesis, right?
It uses Psychic, yeah.
Psychic. Okay, because in the Japanese it's psychokinesis, so that's probably why I
Oh,
got yeah, that's probably why I got confused. Like telekinesis, psychic,
that makes sense.
psychokinesis. Yeah, and it spins it around. Oh no! First it spins it around when it has it in its hands,
Right.
which is really funny.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, that shows like Drifloon's appeal in the contest.
Yes.
And then it finishes off by actually using an attack on Buizel to throw it right into Ash.
Yeah, which
Which is
wakes it up.
like the second time we've seen this because this also happened at the Pastoria gym battle.
Yeah, the shock wakes it up, which makes
Uh-huh.
sense, right? Because sometimes when you're dreaming and you have like that shock of like falling or tripping,
Right.
like you wake up. So Buizel wakes up and it's like, oh no, I gotta get into this battle. But
Uh-huh.
we see that all of that happened was too much for it, and Buizel faints,
Yes.
which I thought
So
was a really neat way of showing a loss.
yeah, I liked that Buizel got to kind of show its personality by being like, no, I'm still in this, and
Yeah,
then it faint.
yeah,
So Ash returns it to its Pokeball, tells it to take a rest, and sends out Chimchar. So maybe he's hoping speed will help him here. It starts off by Fantina's like, you have the honor. So he has Chimchar use Flamethrower, and Drifloon uses Psychic again to capture the flames.
Oh man, and then what happens after this was just it was so cool.
Yeah. It basically takes the flames and wraps it around them to make like a ring of fire around Drifloon, and everyone's like, "Oh,
Yes.
geez," and Ash's like, "Oh, she's using Psychic to control our flamethrower," like almost
Yeah.
offended.
Yeah, and I
um,
like the color scheme of like the blue outline with the fire inside of it.
oh
It
yes,
looks really nice.
and Zoe mentions like, "Oh yeah, it's Like that's a high skill ability for coordinators to be able to grab their opponent's attack and control it like that. Uh, but what's even cooler is that she actually uses that fire to
Yeah.
um, morph it into Will-O-Wisp.
Which, man, it was very smart on the writer's
Uh-huh.
part on the way that they were just like, hey, why don't we catch its flamethrower and turn it into a will-o-wisp? That was just
Right.
that was smart writing, and definitely showed once again the elegance of her. She's not doing anything flashy.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing little subtle things, but the subtle things is what makes her Pokemon stand out so much. So it was cool to see that she took advantage of the flamethrower and like Zoe said, used it to power up her to hide in her Pokemon like she
Mm-hmm.
previously did with the Shockwave and the Magical Leaf. So
Right, because what I'm assuming is that Will-O-Wisp does know the move, or what I'm assuming is that Drifloon does
yeah,
know the move
yeah,
Will-O-Wisp and can like conjure fire, but being able to just like utilize his Chimchar's fire is a cool twist on that idea.
yeah, because that's the coordinator aspect of her
Uh-huh.
style. Um, and she throws it at the Chimchar, but if I'm remembering this correctly, Will-O-Wisp is a status move, right? It's not like an actual attack.
Correct.
Yeah. So, and because Chimchar's a fire type, it wouldn't get dealt any burning damage.
Yes, it wouldn't be able to be burned.
Yeah.
Um, so it seems more like she's using it again like a coordinator would to kind of just um bombard
Yeah.
Chimchar so that she's able to use hypnosis without it resisting, which she
Yeah.
does immediately afterwards.
Yeah. Once again, showing how smart she is and
Mm-hmm.
how they didn't really have to emphasize this, but just with this battle alone, it definitely shows how much she's been training. Um,
Right.
because she definitely took Ash out on a loop. Like Ash was just this entire battle, he was just lost.
Yeah, and he does try to make a strategic attempt here by recalling Chimchar and bringing in Pikachu. And Don's like, "Oh, that was smart of him," but Brock's like, he can't really do much if everyone's asleep, though, because sleep continues even if he brings it back to its Pokeball.
Yeah, that was a definitely cool way to use Dawn's inexperience
Mm-hmm.
to also let the audience know about that
Right.
move. Because Dawn, I think the only time she's witnessed like a Pokemon recall was when a Pokemon was confused. So
Right.
it's definitely good for her to assume that like, oh, maybe sleep works the same way as when a Pokemon is confused,
Mm-hmm.
and them having Brock explain that's not the case, not
Right.
just to her but to audience members that probably wouldn't know this as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where Ash is also thinking about this fact and being like, "Hey, if Pikachu falls asleep, I can't really do much. So, what are we gonna do here?" But Pikachu kind of encourages Ash a bit here. Is like, "Yeah, all right, let's do it," which is kind of neat.
Yeah,
Just seeing that support and bond between those two is always nice.
yeah, definitely. I don't know if this happens automatically, but she definitely was taken aback, right? Because Pikachu does damage as well.
Right. So as Pikachu gets sent out, she attacks with Will-O-Wisp again, but this time not the Chimchar kind,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
just like flames that Drifloon summons itself. And while it's taking that damage, Ash is like, "No, we're gonna still attack." So Pikachu used Thunderbolt and is able to recover from the Will-O-Wisp in time and land a direct hit. And that's where she's impressed by Pikachu's ability to do a big hit like that after being surrounded by those Will-O-Wisp.
it was. Yeah, it was good to see her once again kind of be taken aback because she was taken aback
Mm-hmm.
with Weasel, and then now with Ash. So it was cool to see that he kind of had her stunned a couple of moments in this battle, because it was pretty one-sided.
Yes. It was nice to see that even though it was leaning very heavily towards Fantina being the winner, she was acknowledging Ash's skills nonetheless.
Yeah.
Um, However, we see this power play come into effect again as Ash goes big, and he's like, "All right, Pikachu, use Volt Tackle."
Mm-hmm.
And as it goes in for this, ominous wind basically blows Pikachu back. As Pikachu tries to keep charging forward, it's just being faced with too much force, and the Volt Tackle fails as it gets sent flying backwards.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. Just just like how powerful this Drifloon is. Like, it pretty
Yeah,
much took down a Weasel. Um, it could have taken down Chimchar if Ash wouldn't have, been fast on his feet and returned it.
right.
And it's definitely holding its own against a Volt Tackle, which is definitely, I think, at this point in the anime, Pikachu's strongest move.
Definitely.
So I don't
And then
know.
Pikachu tries to follow up with a Thunderbolt, which also makes contact. And like, if this were the games, Pikachu would have won by now because Drifloon is weak to electric. But here it's mostly the show that even though Pikachu's taking this damage, it's still able to quickly come back from that. And things really get get thrown for a loop here for Ash as Drifloon starts to evolve as it breaks out of this Thunderbolt.
Yeah, that was definitely cool to see. I kind of, part of me wishes they would have acknowledged that it's a dual type.
Oh yeah, that's right,
Because like the audience is not aware of it, and unless you know it's actual typing, you're
right.
just stuck on a loop, wondering. But again,
If
they
it's just
didn't.
Ghost or
Yeah,
not.
but again, the anime didn't emphasize it as well, because though it took damage, it didn't seem like it was affecting it like it normally would affect like a flying type. Um,
Yeah,
and it was also like a nice little note that she had trained this Drifloon since it was a baby. Um,
right.
so it definitely shows why it's as strong as it was,
Uh
and why
huh.
it was like holding its own against three of Ash's Pokemon. And I think it's safe to say three of his strongest.
Yeah,
Um, and the evolution was just to emphasize the bond between the two, Fantina and the Drift Bloom, which is now a Drift Blim.
yes. And Dom pulls out the Pokédex as we get an introduction of this new Pokemon. Fantina's meanwhile spinning around, and Drift Blim is mimicking her, which is kind of cute.
Yeah.
And it's like this is the Blimp Pokemon, the evolved form of Drifloon. It can travel on wind currents, and because of its type of movement, it can be very unpredictable.
Yeah. And so what happens next definitely made me like curious as to maybe if she was expecting this, because the way that she uses it, she just came off naturally. Like,
Right. Because Pikachu uses Thunderbolt, and Drifblim, for like the first time this whole match, basically dodges without using a move, and just kind of like does a somersault in midair and
yeah.
calmly dodges Pikachu's attack.
Yeah, so again, it just shows her like her her hard work without actually emphasizing it. Like, they don't
Right.
have to recall so many times like, oh yeah, she's been training, like you see it in the way that she uses her Pokemon. Like the fact that sh it just felt like they were so in sync, like they were basically just sharing one mind,
Yes.
because of the way that she just like maneuvered with it.
Right. She knew exactly how to use this
Yeah,
Drifblim.
once again, like the emphasis on elegance just just I think that's the best way I can describe her as a coordinator, just elegance.
And what's weird though is that her gym has a Drifblim on top of it,
Oh yeah, that's true.
and it doesn't seem like she had one until this moment.
Yeah, maybe it was like, I don't know, like a goal. Like maybe she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a." The goal is for you to become a Drifloon because eventually that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because
It could
again,
be maybe like at one point she had another Drifblim, and this one she's like, I want to raise a Drifblim since it was a baby.
yeah, that could be it. Yeah, well, yeah, because we can assume since she had it since it was a baby, maybe it hatched from an egg, right?
Yeah. And maybe that egg came from her other Drifblim.
And a ditto.
And exactly. Um, and Drifblim is getting real intimate with Pikachu as it flies down. Speaking of Ditto, and just holds Pikachu's cheeks, and Pikachu's like, "What's happening?"
Yeah.
And then Drifblim uses hypnosis like at at blank range, basically. So Pikachu has no choice but to take a nap.
Yes. Oh, there was also, we skipped over like Jesse wanting to know ominous wind.
Right, and Team Rocket's like, yeah, Mega can't learn that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and she also wanted Yan Mega to evade the same way as Drifblim did.
Right.
Sorry, Jesse. Like you.
That's not how it works, girl.
No. Like what I was gonna say is the emphasis that should have been put on this review. Took a lot out of me because of the previous episode we just reviewed, which is why I forgot Jesse existed in this episode.
Right. She's just recording. She's not really doing much, but that's her whole thing. She wants to learn how to be like Fantina, but it doesn't have the basic stuff down to be able to mimic her successfully, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then Ash kind of just forfeits. He's like, "Well, both my Pokemon are asleep. I don't think I can do much. So, good battle, but I kind of have to admit defeat here."
Yeah, and I'm glad that this happened because during like his bout with Chimchar, I had asked myself like, how is he gonna do this? Like if the Drifblim beats Pikachu, he has to go back to Chimchar. Like how is he gonna wake up Chimchar?
Right.
That was my like my prediction was that he was gonna have to use Chimchar somehow. Because I thought that either Pikachu was going to be the one to beat the Drifblim before it evolved, then lose to the next Pokemon. But then when it evolved into a Drifblim, I was like, okay, Pikachu's gonna lose, so that means Ash is gonna have to bring Chimchar back. And so that was like my whole questioning during the battle. But we found out that Pikachu also fell asleep, and so Ash had no other choice but to forfeit, which was for me a good choice and a good answer for what my question was during the battle.
Yeah, it was nice to see that like Ash is like, well, I have to figure out what I'm gonna do, but right now there's no point. Like I need to rethink my strategy and approach here, which is nice.
Yeah, and though it was a forfeit, it leaves the audience with like technically he didn't lose. So
yeah,
it gives you
that's
like
fair.
It gives you that excitement as to like, oh, well, he never really lost. So now it gives some more excitement towards their next encounter, whenever that is.
Right. It definitely some suspense of how Ash is going to tackle this problem moving forward. We cut to later in the night. Jesse is with Yanmega, and Yanmega's like, "Sorry, girl, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do what you want me to do here."
Yeah, and James and Meowth are like, well, that's Drifbloom style. That's not Yanmega style. Each Pokemon has their own different style.
Yeah, but she's like, "Nope, like no, I needed to be like that." Everyone's like, all right."
Yeah.
We cut back to the Pokemon Center, and Dawn's congratulating Zoe on winning her third ribbon. And Dawn's like, yeah, I need to I need to go to the Celestic Town contest so I can catch up with you. And Zoe's like, oh, cool. I'm going to pass, but I'll be cheering for you. So good luck on that. And
She also
Dawn's like, looks over at Ash, like, hey, do you hear that? Zoe got her contest. And Ash is just surrounded by all his Pokemon as he's trying to think very intensely of how to get around hypnosis.
yeah, and we find that out after Brock slides in and tells us why. But
Right.
but I was gonna say that I liked that Zoe dedicated the victory or gave all the credit to her getting the ribbon to her Shellos.
Oh yeah, that was cute. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
she's
Shellos
like,
came in clutch for me,
yeah,
basically.
that was pretty cool of her to acknowledge it. But yeah, when Brock slid in, he looked like a creep. I was like, whoa.
He's making some tea or something, or
Yeah.
Pokemon food, I guess.
Yeah, and so Ash is like, we're gonna work day and night to find out how to overcome hypnosis. But I was like, bro, your Pokemon aren't gonna get any sleep then.
Right? Like you're gonna automatically fall asleep even without hypnosis
Yeah.
if you do that.
Yeah.
But then Dawn also gets hyped and she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna win the contest too." So now they are very much excited for both of their next challenges, which is neat. And that's pretty much it for that episode. So, playing the leveling field, episode 41 of Battle Dimension. What are your thoughts on it, Manny?
Yeah, there was I think like a parting between the two, right? Before. Between Fantina and Ash.
No, Fantina's like, yeah, I'll
Or
be at
like
the gym. Oh yeah, she says like I'm gonna be at the gym. Um, so when you're ready, come challenge me. So it looks like she's gonna take a break from her training, and that might be because she beat Zoe and basically beat Ash. So maybe she feels like she's done enough training for now at least.
yeah, so what she does in the English version is like she pretty much ends it like going full on French to the point
Yes.
where Brock is like, "Did you understand what she said?" But in the Japanese version, she ends up speaking like in Pokemon puns. Like she
Oh.
tells Ash that they fought like Apom, and then she was like, "Oh, like let's keep working as hard as Kabutops." And that's when Brock is like, "Do you know what she's talking about?" And Zoe's like, "No."
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that was like,
Okay, underrated. I like Zoe and Brock's relationship.
yeah, they're cool. They're a cool dynamic.
Yeah, like it's very mellow, but they're both like the most level-headed at times.
Yeah, yeah. Brock is more like neutral, whereas Zoe sometimes has like a little sass to her. Um, but they definitely have like good on-screen chemistry.
Yeah, they're both very observant, which is cool to see because a lot of times it's just like Brock explaining things, but Zoe is also someone who can explain things here, which is nice.
Yeah, so I definitely enjoyed this episode. I liked my introduction to Fantina. I loved how she was presented, her reasonings for training, which makes sense, right? Because even if as a gym leader, you should never strive to be complacent. It's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
and now that I'm thinking back on it, I still don't think Ash had any reasoning for questioning her because even Rourke said the same thing to Ash, or I think it was to Paul, who's like, "Oh, just because I'm a gym leader doesn't mean that I don't train."
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Again, it's just weird because Ash was going at it pretty logically and being like, "Sure, I get your training, but like we need to challenge you for the gym badge. Like we still need to do this if you're training or not. It's just like your responsibility." And then when he switches it to like, "Why are you training?" That's where it kind of
yeah,
loses um its strength as an argument.
yeah. So definitely liked her character. Just how she combined battling and coordinating to one like battle style where it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't as flashy, but it still left that impact that this was like a move you could probably see in a contest that would definitely wow the audience, and obviously her being a top coordinator definitely shows why. Again, like just her moveset was so elegant. Her intelligence to take her opponent's attack and use that to power up her own Pokemon, give it more power while also making it look beautiful and emphasizing on that Pokemon, and making it look more amazing. So yeah, overall this entire episode I enjoyed, and I will give it an 8. Just for the way that Fantina was introduced and presented during this entire episode.
I'm struggling between a 7.5 and an 8. It's very close for me. I think the setup isn't great, but it's not super relevant, so I'm willing to let that slide. It's neat to see everyone be pretty aware and self-conscious during this episode, ranging from like Ash, Zoe, even Team Rocket in some sense, and seeing this side of Jessie actually play into the plot as a coordinator was nice.
Yeah,
the fact that it wasn't just like, let me steal the Drifloon or something, is refreshing to see.
Yeah, because Meowth had assumed, like, oh, you want to steal Miss Magius, right? She's like, no,
Yeah,
I want to steal her moveset. That's what I want to steal.
Right, exactly. She's much more reasonable in some ways about it. I think I'll give it an 8. It's a pretty good episode overall. Doesn't it might have in its favor the fact that the last episode was so bad that this one in comparison is very strong as well.
God, I'm gonna have nightmares about that episode.
Yeah, but those are our thoughts on it, and just to make sure we're not going too far over time, Manny, did you want to share your poetry for this week?
Yes, since we had a Drifloon, and I don't know if I'm pretty sure I didn't recite a poem the first time we were introduced to Drifloon back in the very, very horrible Suicune episode.
Yeah.
So, once again, a poem by who Don refers to as the poet. What did you call him? The poetry guy, right?
The poetry man.
Yes. Oh, the poetry man. I present to you, the listeners, a poem titled Drifloon, and it goes like this. Drifloon floats as it flies on Friday.
Nice. Do you get why it's Friday?
No, I'm more concerned as to why it floats while it's flying. Like, does that make sense? That it's floating while it's flying?
Hey, it's a deep message about, like, even if you're flying and going places, do it with grace and elegance. Be carefree and one with the wind.
Okay. Yeah, but I definitely am interested why only that specific day of the week and not every other day. So please.
So on Fridays in the evenings, you can find a Drifloon outside of Valley Windworks.
Would you look at that? Well, then... Then I guess we can assume that the two girls from the Suicune episode caught their Drifloons on Friday evenings.
Maybe, yeah, that might be it.
Well, not they're 2, they're 3. Would you look at that?
We 3 or 4. I can't remember now. Okay, this is the question. Which episode is worse? Lean Team Machine
Team Rocket,
or Drifloon on the Wind?
Team Rocket. The Lean Rocket Machine. Worse. You know what? This episode made the Suicune episode look like an amazing episode. That's how bad it was. That I actually wanted to rewatch the Suicune one. Because that episode was super...
Yeah.
Jesus.
This one was definitely a major offender. But anyway...
yes, question of the week. Go ahead.
Well, that was my question of the week.
Oh.
Which one is worse? Uh, but I think it's good just because we're cutting it close here, about the 2 hour mark. So, just thanking everyone for listening as always. So yeah, hopefully you're enjoying it, catching your drift balloon on Friday if you're at the Valley Windworks. Assuming it's the same in the remakes as well. But if you want to catch Pokemon TV, you can do that on Pokemon.com and looking for TV on there. It's also on mobile apps and on the Switch if you want to check it out. For you, this was your first time ever meeting Fantina, right? Because you haven't played the games.
Yep. There definitely a lot of firsts in terms of the gym leaders that I've been lucky to meet during episodes. So it's Rourke, Crasher Wake, and Fantina now.
And Maylene, maybe?
Oh yeah, I forgot about her. Well, no, I say because the episodes that I did were the first episodes where those gym leaders specifically were introduced.
Got it. Their debut episode.
Yes, their debut episodes.
Awesome. Well, as always, great to have you, Manny. I'm glad you got through that first one and made it through this much better second episode for this week.
Yes. Let's make sure that the two of us don't go back to the basics, because then this podcast will go downhill, just like the episode.
Yeah, I'll go back to that Drifloon episode.
Yeah.
But as always, my name is Will.
And my name is Manny.
And we will catch you next time. See you in Sinnoh.
Bye.